Hi, I'm back. It's day 3 of the 10-day online video challenge, and today's challenge is all about sharing some tips. So I thought this was a great time to share some tips that I know I've been coming back to remember again because I keep forgetting them, but some ways to actually help you manage the stress and the fun of the magical, wonderful, sometimes overwhelming month of December. So, are you ready? Let's do it. So, in case you haven't met yet before, I'm Courtney Louie, and I am all about helping you live intentionally with passion and purpose as God's beloved. It's also because I struggle with that. So, you're definitely not the only one who's like, I don't know how to do that. And that's a big reason I love talking about it and geeking out about it because I think it's super fun and it's really empowering. When you remember that as God's beloved, that changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, how you see others. It changes how you treat yourself, how you manage your time. And I'm not saying that as God's beloved, you can't clean toilets or whatever fill in the blank that might be. But the cool thing is that it changes the way you see everything. So, and it gives you passion and purpose and helps you live more intentionally because you're thriving into who you are. So, my little mini sermon done for now. I thought I'd share some of those tips. I would have had jotted them down, so excuse me if my eyes kind of look over in different places. So one of the big tips I want to start with, number one, is starting an enough list. So I actually learned this from the Purpose Show podcast, Ali Kazaza, such a great podcast, but it's actually been a year or two ago. But she talked about this idea of how sometimes it can be so easy to be overwhelmed by everything you're juggling, all the responsibilities, everyone demanding your time and your energy, that you feel like you have to do all the things. And the thing is, you actually don't. And I know it's a bit different if you have a job, you have certain things you have to do. Like, for instance, I have a child. I do need to feed him and take care of him. But that also doesn't mean I have to go do 100% on everything. But the idea is like starting an enough list. So what are the things that you could put on your list that are good enough? So in a nutshell, the definition is an enough list outlines what is enough in your life so you can focus on what's important and determine what is excess. It can be applied to every area of your life, from business to family, your health to your home. Enough list can cause you to ask yourself, what's enough in this area of my life? What is that called to do in this area of my life? So depending on the season you're in, what's on your enough list may vary. So, we'll talk about parents because that's an easy target. If you have a newborn and infant, your enough list may be very short because you're focusing on sleep for yourself, helping this little human thrive, and just enjoying the time that you have. And so you really pare down. You may not do dishes as often. You may outsource. You may ask someone to do your laundry. There may be a lot of different things that you've decided that's not your top focus right now, and that's okay. So what's going on on your plate in the month of December? That's a good time to ask that question about what's enough in this area. So maybe when it comes to your health, your enough is perhaps you're not making a bunch of fancy gourmet dishes, but you are committed to providing nourishing, satisfying food. Doesn't have to be complicated. I'm a big fan of grilled cheese. It could also mean like you don't do 7 days a week working out. You dial it back to 3. Whatever that may be, modify, be creative, do what works best for you, and you can apply that to other areas. It can be really liberating. And in fact, it's actually something I've kind of been doing on a regular basis since hearing this idea. Each day I like to write down my priorities for the next day. So if I was going to drill it down to the bare essentials, what are those things that matter most? And that's been really helpful for me to focus in on those and not try to do all the other things. And personally, I get more stressed when I keep adding more things to the list than were actually priorities for the day. So guilty as charged. So definitely feel free to pop on in the comments if you want, if you have anything on your enough list, like what's good enough for you to do and everything else you can set aside. So another tip, again, I'm borrowing from some people who taught me great things. Christina Kuzmix, yes, I nailed it. She talked about the idea of adding right now to what's frustrating you. I also think that can apply, and she talked about that before, the idea of adding right now to the good things. So for instance, maybe, we'll go with December. You're preparing for Christmas. You're gift shopping. You're strategizing all the food or planning your road trip. You're also trying to hit up all these different activities and whatnot. It may be really jam-packed for you. And so right now, you might be like saying December is really busy right now. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to keep staying that way. It doesn't mean January will be that way. It doesn't mean it'll be that way indefinitely. But just that idea of how right now, that's how it is right now. Another quote from Christine I thought was super great. It's not permanent. Whatever you're going through, whether it's really something heavy and life-altering like a divorce or a huge financial struggle, or whether it's just everyday parenting chaos, it's not permanent. So add right now to whatever's frustrating about parenting or life in general so that you're not putting a permanence on it. You're realizing that whatever is difficult right now, it doesn't have to be difficult forever. Isn't that exciting? I know I forget that. So, like, for instance, I shared recently, I had an emergency appendectomy. I'm doing better now. It's exciting. But for the time, it felt like I would never recover. It felt like the most indefinite thing. Plus, my family got really sick for like 2 weeks, so it was super awesome. But like sometimes it feels like I'm never going to get out of this fill in the blank season. But eventually, you typically are, and that's really great. It's also a good reminder that when you're cruising and rocking along, right now, that feeling, that enjoyment may change, and that's okay. I mean, honestly, isn't that one of the magical things about life? That things aren't always magical, I guess you could say. So that's the other tip. So we got the first one, creating an enough list. And even if you need to, just think about one area of your life and make that enough list. Tacking on right now to what's stressing you out or what you're really rocking out about. Just remember, like, enjoy it or let yourself breathe. It's not going to be indefinite. And then there was also my other tip. It was really geared toward parents, but I think it also applies to all of us. The Authentic Intimacy podcast. They're so good. Check it out. If you don't listen to podcasts, they're super good. But this tip was basically the idea of what your role as a mom is really about. And how often we, especially in church culture, talk about how we are called to, help our children develop a relationship with Jesus. We want them to come to know Christ. And that is absolutely true. But it's not your job. Your job, you can't facilitate that. You can't make that relationship happen. Much like, if you're single and you have a crush on someone, if they don't crush on you back, nothing's happening likely. And that's okay. Just owning the fact that your job is not to be the relationship maker. Your job is actually to strive to be like Jesus. Your job is to grow in your intimacy with Jesus. It's to come to know him. It's to walk with him. It's to seek him out. And that'll affect how your children see your relationship with Jesus. That doesn't guarantee they're going to choose it. So that's another thing, is just remembering what your role really is, especially as a Christian, is to be like Jesus, to strive to be like him and grow with him. Pretty simple, but also sometimes difficult to remember, right? So that also applies to other things. And of course, I'm an expert on this. Since my child is almost 4, I know exactly how to do all parenting. Joking. So the 3 tips, I'm going to recap it again. One of them was making an enough list. What's good enough for the season you're in? That's going to fluctuate. 2, adding right now to the season you're in when things are stressing you out or when you're feeling like a boss so you can enjoy it. Remembering 3, what your role really is. It's to be like Jesus. You can't force other people to come to know Jesus, but you can shine the light. And then I just lost my other tip. I need to double check. So another one, there we go, was also since December is a pretty awesome month as, Christians. It's close to our Super Bowl, not quite, that's Easter, but we're celebrating the birth of Jesus, right? That he came to earth, that he became a human and wanted to walk among us. That's so exciting. And I know I forget about that, how exciting it is. So you've got all the holiday stuff, you got parties, you got church activities, you got family stuff, you got friend stuff, maybe work stuff, and of course there's Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then there's New Year's, one of my favorite times of the year. One of the things that can be really helpful with all of that going on is to simply sit down and think about what are your priorities, what do you care most about when it comes to those days. So for instance, what are the things that you boil it down to the bare essentials for, let's say, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day? I'm just chunking them together. What are those? Luke, your water's in your bedroom. Thank you. Hello. So what those things are, what do you care most about? So it wouldn't be Christmas if you didn't, set up a tree. For me, one of the things I want to prioritize is simply reading about Jesus' birth, singing some songs, and cuddling on the couch. I'm a complicated woman. What that might be for you may vary, but really thinking about what are the things that you actually care about that really mean the most to you, and that can help you let go of some of the other pressure about all the other things. Especially if you do holidays with extended family, if you do it with friends, whoever those people are, it might help you loosen up and not feel so stressed about all the things. So for instance, for some families, it's a great debate. Is turkey the thing we should do, or should we do ham? I don't know what team you fall on. I'm on team don't care. And that's been really helpful. I don't worry about the discussions as much because really whatever goes, goes. So anyway, pretty simple, but just thinking about what are your actual essentials, the things that matter most to you for those days, and making sure you do your best to prioritize those. A big caveat is it's not your job to force your expectations or what you want to do on others. So really being, having a good grasp of you can't control other people, but you can, control yourself. Self-control is a gift of the Holy Spirit, right? So that's one other tip. So basically zooming in on what are your priorities, what are the things you really, really want to do, and that can free you up to not feel like you have to do all the other things, or if someone else wants to do that, let that be. That's okay. But you don't have to have the pressure on you to make it perfect, because perfection is overrated and you can't do it by yourself. So let's see, what are the other ones? I have another one. I had 5 and I just forgot what it was, so that's not very helpful, huh? Starting an enough list, adding right now to the good and bad in your life, what your role is really about, setting your priorities for the holidays, and there we go, back to the classic one. Just remembering that who you are defines who you are. And I don't know about you, I tend to be an overachiever. I like to do all the things, and what all the things look like for me may be different than you, but it can be really easy to judge yourself, your worth based off of what you've accomplished, things you've done, things you've said, all those different things. And I'm not saying those don't impact you, but your actual worth, your value is you are God's beloved. He loves you. You can just pop in, I am my name, God's beloved. And keeping that in mind, that really can affect how you see everything, like we talked about earlier, the way you approach how you're spending your time, how you offer yourself grace, and also offer others grace. Again, I don't have it all figured out. I'm definitely a work in progress about this, but just remembering that you're God's beloved, and that affects how everything about your life. And He sees you as worthy. He created you for good works. You are His workmanship. He has great purpose for you. Even if right now it feels like your purpose is really tiny or you don't know what it is. And He knows that too. And it's okay to talk about it with Him because He loves you and He wants to see you. So I'm going to wrap up those tips again, and I promise I'll wrap this up on tomorrow. I'll be back again. Woohoo! So those 5 tips. 1, make an enough list. What are those things that are good enough, the things that you actually want to focus on? And those are your penultimate, I guess you could say, and you can let go of the rest, or at least let go of the pressure. So an enough list. Tacking on right now to your season, the things that are stressing you out, the things that are rocking your socks off, because the season will pass, and that's okay. The other 3rd tip, let me double check what I put down there, what your role is really about. You are called to be like Jesus. You are not called to be perfect. You're going to be called to be perfect like Jesus, so that's not the same thing as Pinterest perfect. Or your job is not to make relationships happen, especially relationships between other people with other people. Now I'm rambling. But basically just remember your role is to be like Jesus, no matter what you're doing, and your work, and your parenting, and your marriage, and your dating, and your neighborhood, all those places. And the 4th tip, too many fingers, is setting your priorities for the season. So keeping in mind, what are the things that you really care about most, the bare essentials for, again, like we'll just focus on Christmas Eve, and New Year's. I also like to think about the day after Christmas because that's a different kind of feeling. But what are your actual essentials, the things that matter most to you, and then create space for that. And then you can let off the pressure about making everything else perfect, even knowing you're doing this with other people likely. And then your last step, remembering that whose you are, God's beloved, defines who you are, not how well you do Christmas or whatnot. So I will stop talking. This went lots longer than I meant it to be. I will be back tomorrow with day 4, talking about my story. So we'll see what that is, because we all have a lot of stories, right? So feel free to pop on in the comments if there's any tip that really stood out to you, or one that you're already applying. I'd love to hear from you. And feel free to tag it with replay if you watched it replay, because most likely your schedule's not mine. So I will stop yammering and let you on with your day. As always, you can live intentionally with passion and purpose as God's beloved. See you later.